All right, I am back with This Week at Tassi, my weekly news roundup where I cover some of the stories that caught my eye the most, whether I covered them or didn't cover them this week. Usually try to keep that to five, including maybe one about what I'm playing. This week, there's a few to focus on. One of the most interesting stories that I didn't really do a full write-up on was what we heard from Xbox this week in terms of how, not only the brand is doing, but uh, Game Pass, hardware sales, all of this stuff, and it's so all over the place, and it's a little hard to parse because like there's good news and bad news, and like it's kind of all over the place. So, what was reported is that hardware is obviously in a very bad state. Like every time they report hardware for any period of time, it's down like 30%, and I can't remember the last time it wasn't down 30%. This is no great surprise given how much they have downplayed needing to own Xbox for a long time now, and how much they are almost exclusively pushing Game Pass. And I think Microsoft Satya Nadella said something about how they're doubling down on profitability with Xbox, and that includes kind of higher margin, more profitable stuff like Game Pass. And in that regard, even though hardware was down 30%, there was some overall revenue increase because of Game Pass, like a single-digit increase. And there was some interesting info how, in terms of software, Sony was the biggest spender on Xbox software this year, and then Xbox is the number one publisher of the year, which those last two items, you may guess, it's because of Call of Duty. Almost, I don't know about exclusively, but Call of Duty is a major, major chunk of that. So even though there's been some issues, this year with Call of Duty and a lot of controversy in the community, it's Call of Duty. It sold extremely well, and going forward, whatever issues Xbox may have with first-party stuff, they now own Call of Duty, and that is a huge, huge asset for them for the indefinite future, really. And then on the side, they own King, the big mobile arm. So when they talk about having, I forget what it was, 400, 500 million users or something, an enormous chunk of that is all of King's games, which, not that this stuff doesn't count, but it just shows you what they kind of got using the giant Activision deal and why they kind of made that in the first place. So this is sort of the path that they're on. Related to this, earlier in the week, Phil Spencer did a couple of interviews where he talked about how, this third-party path is just what they're doing now. Nothing is off the table. Originally, they were pitching when they were buying Activision that some games, like, their new IPs, that's what we keep exclusive. But we wouldn't keep Call of Duty exclusive because it's already, an existing franchise. But now it's just, we're going full third-party with everything, whether that's day-and-date launch, whether that is time delay, or whether things are just going to hang in limbo. Definitely, I think like Starfield or something was asked about, and like nothing is off the table. Gears of War, Halo, future stuff. So it just, everything's sort of in limbo where we don't really know for all of Xbox exclusives what system they're going to be coming from. But the bottom line is like, you probably just don't need an Xbox. You can, well, it depends. If you want to play day and date Game Pass stuff on actual hardware, your best bet is probably an Xbox, or I guess depending on if you shell out for a gaming PC. Otherwise, you're going to have to do like cloud streaming. You can just own a PlayStation, but you don't know what's going to launch day and date, what's going to be delayed, and then what may not come for years, if ever. So it's not as clear cut as like, okay, we'll just buy a PlayStation and get everything. Like that would come from some downsides here. But like this is certainly an era of the console war, quote unquote, which is sort of over in terms of hardware sales that we've never really seen before. And Xbox is really trying to do something unique here. And like so far it seems to be going like okay, but every time there's a new release or new data out, it raises questions. There was no new Game Pass data out, so we don't know, presumably they did not hit some sort of milestone. The last time they announced the figures, it was after they converted all Game Pass Gold people to be called Game Pass Core. So they're like, we added 10 million new Game Pass subscribers. It's like, did you really? And I asked them a million times and they would not break down, which of those were actually new and which of those were carryovers from Gold. So Xbox is a mystery wrapped in a puzzle, wrapped in an enigma in some ways here, but overall this seems like good news. And I mean, being the number one publisher of the year is, that's great. That's awesome. Even, it's Call of Duty, but they own Call of Duty, and they had the capability and I guess wherewithal to shell out for that with their massive purchasing power, and here we are. There was also some news from EA that was somewhat dire. I covered this yesterday, I guess, but I'll kind of go through that again in case you didn't want to watch that whole video. EA has suffered some misses as of late. Probably the biggest story is not the BioWare stuff. It's the fact that FC 2025 underperformed, formerly FIFA, when that is a core staple of EA and has been for years. And seeing that not perform as well as they want to, that's like kind of alarming in some ways. So obviously I'm not really well versed in that field of games, and I don't know exactly what's happening there, if there's some big controversy or something, but that is probably the bigger deal than the underperformance of Dragon Age. Almost said Inquisition again, Dragon Age the Veilguard. This leads to this story about how BioWare is in a crazy state right now. They've previously said that the Veilguard underperformed by about half. It had 1.5 million, quote, engagements, and they wanted 3. That's not even sales. Engagements can be people playing on EA Play. I don't know if it counts if people are playing a demo or something, but this led to this weird BioWare message about how they're becoming a more agile developer, which involves some people moving over to EA jobs, but it also involved layoffs that they did not talk about outright. And we had to hear from people on social media that they were being cut. It was a lot of Dragon Age writers, because presumably they were not the people writing Mass Effect. And, quote unquote, Mass Effect doesn't need the whole studio. This leads to a point where Mass Effect 5 is make or break for BioWare. There's really no way of getting around that. They have 3 pretty much underperforming games with Anthem, Andromeda, and now the Veilguard. If Mass Effect 5 is not what it needs to be, I don't know why BioWare would really continue to exist at that point. Obviously, I'm hoping it's great. I would love to play a really great Mass Effect game, but they're certainly in a dire strait right now, and it's going to be kind of a giant climb to make sure they can survive in the long term. And obviously, I don't want to see BioWare shut down. I really like BioWare games. I like BioWare games more than most people, as been evidenced before. But you don't want to see people mass lose their jobs in the industry. So I really hope they can pull it together. But it has been a rough decade, and I feel like they've had a lot of chances to, they say they're going to keep making unforgettable RPGs, but I think they have been making forgettable RPGs for most of the audience for a decade now, which is a problem. I'll touch briefly on GTA. GTA is the one after this. Destiny's Heresy. We had a big live stream about that. We got some information about the story, the activities. I am kind of mixed about it from what we can see. The story is about returning to the Dreadnought, and a Dread person. I guess I never connected that it's the Dreadnought with the Dread, is getting the new Echo. Oryx is there. Is a ghost or something, so he's coming back in some capacity. I was confused about how this is supposed to be about the Hive Pantheon, but they're only listing, those characters plus Eris and Drifter and Sloane as the main characters of this. No Savathun or Xivu Arath. This seems like a really kind of key time to deal with Xivu Arath, if we're wrapping up kind of loose ends from the last 10 years or so. People are saying that the theory is that they're just hiding them, and they don't want to talk about, a moment where Xivu Arath may arrive. There's been art that shows Xivu Arath like grabbing the sword and things like that. So it's possible, we just do get that eventually, but I was a little caught off guard by the description of the story. I also was not wild about the first look at the activity. It's this roguelike thing where you don't regen health unless you get health potions and things, and there's like boons and things you get. And I like roguelikes. Hades is one of my favorite games ever, probably. I really love that game, but I am a little concerned about how this will work in a 3-player match-made activity, and I've never enjoyed playing Destiny when you don't regen health. Like, not that it's too hard or anything. It just doesn't feel very good. I don't think that's, I'm just very curious to see if that concept actually works. Another weird thing is that the Dreadnought does not appear to be a true patrol space. Like, there's an exploration mode that you can kind of take it easy and explore more and find some things, but it's still the activity. Like, you're still doing, the rounds of killing things and whatever. So it's not really even like Leviathan where that came back, and you could just kind of explore around and do public event type things in addition to doing the actual activity that was there. So kind of weird. I don't know how much of the Dreadnought is coming back. Don't know if it'll stay. By default, you'd think it wouldn't stay. However, if they're doing this, like, we're porting over ritual activities thing for Frontiers, like they said they were doing, like they're keeping the coil, maybe they keep this. Another theory is that we're going to use the Dreadnought to be the thing that lets us leave the system, as that seems like something that would be certainly capable of that and giant enough to fit all the people we'd want to bring. But, that remains to be seen. The second half of this I thought was really cool. They debuted a lot of interesting new weapons. There's this concept of heretical super seasonal weapons with kind of really interesting temporary mods, abilities. They do seem kind of like shinies. Acquisition path is a little confusing. They didn't quite make it clear there. There's a lot of controversy that there's not going to be crafting again, which I'm really shocked at. My opinion on crafting, but after the backlash, I am very surprised. They are adding crafting to Vault of Glass for those weapons with new perks and stuff, so that's a reason to go back there. It's going to be like, the other newer raids that have crafting. I thought the new aspects they introduced sounded really cool. Like, the aspects they've been doing lately are really solid. There's 2 arc ones for Warlock and Titan, and then a Night Stalker Void one, which is cool. I'm guessing those are all of them, but Macta said this on Twitter, where adding an aspect is a lot more valuable than adding like a piece of exotic armor, which we're not getting. I fully agree with that, because an aspect can create so many different build possibilities where exotic armor often only creates one if it's good at all. So I think that's better. It sounds like a cool season. The artifact mods look cool. I'm really interested to do some new builds there. So that is the part I'm really positive about. An hour ago, we got a look at a very interesting looking project called the Absurdiverse, which would not normally be something I'd care much about covering, the launch of a new IP. But this is Dan Houser, who's the guy who co-founded Rockstar and is like the driving creative force behind Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption. So when he's doing something new, you sit up and take notice. And I think there's at least a couple people from Destiny that went over there. I think Katarina went over there. So they debuted this as an IP, not necessarily a game. They talked about animation projects, but there is a game. It's called, it's described as an action comedy. And I have the image up here where it's like, here's the cast of characters. And at first you're like, oh God, is this another hero thing with colorful characters and like their own abilities? I don't think so. Like, this doesn't strike me as some sort of multiplayer hero shooter thing. I think this is going to be like a narrative driven story thing. And this is, the cast you'll interact with. I don't know who you're playing as or whatever. It's very strange cast of characters. There's what appears to be, a modern day set of like pretty normal looking characters, the type that you might just see as NPCs wandering around. And then a string of characters that are fantasy based, a dwarf, a Viking, a skeleton, a Grim Reaper looking thing, I think a magician. I don't know. So I have no real idea what's going on here. Obviously hearing about, a colorful cast of characters and launching a new universe and animation projects. I'm thinking of Concord, because this just happened a lot of months ago. Did the same thing, colorful cast of characters, and then all of this stuff, secret level episode, and it was a disaster. But I'm not going to just write this off because of Concord's failure. I don't think there's barely anything you can truly compare to Concord, so I don't think that should be like a measuring stick for everything. Also, I think, it's Dan Houser, and he's been responsible for a ton of like hugely successful things. So if this is something he's like super passionate about, even if it sounds and looks kind of weird, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt for now. Once it actually starts rolling out with more promotion, I hope it's something that looks actually very fun and cool and funny. Because if not, that may get it off to a very slow start. It can be hard to really hook people if you're. I talk about aesthetic a lot. This is a very odd aesthetic where it seems kind of mundane and basic, but I guess we'll see where it goes. I'm very curious about this, given his history and the amount and type of people that this studio has assembled. So we'll see. In terms of what I'm playing Avowed. I got a review code for that. Can't say shit about it. Not going to say shit about it. The only thing I can really talk about is the embargo date, which is February 13th. So they gave us like 2 weeks to play. That's a lot of time. I've had way worse crunch type embargoes. I don't know how long the game is. We've had estimates. I'm not going to say anything about that based on what I played. I haven't even played that much yet. But 2 weeks is a solid amount of time to play a game like this. So that's always nice. People are saying like, oh, reviews drop 5 days before launch. So that's a great sign. Well, not really, because the game technically comes out on the 13th, because you can pay extra for 5 days of early access, because this is a thing everybody does now, which I hate. It's just, if we're looking for $80, $100 games, as some people want, this is how you get there. I don't know how much this early access is, but this is just happening for like every game now. 5 days early access is a lot. This is not a live game or anything, so you're not like, quote, getting ahead of people, but so reviews are out that day. Again, I'm not saying anything about whether that's good or bad. The game has been like somewhat controversial about people think it's not being promoted enough. It's going to be, I think it's the second highest profile exclusive project of the year from Xbox, because it is one that has not been announced as coming to PS5, even if it will someday. I think Doom is a higher profile project, but that is also confirmed not exclusive. It's coming to PlayStation. The first biggest is Fable, which is supposed to come out at the end of 2025. I don't believe that will happen, but for the sake of argument, let's say it does. That would be a bigger project, I think, in terms of importance than this. These days, it's hard to even really measure what a success is for an Xbox launch, because all we really have is Game Pass numbers, and sometimes we don't even get those. So it's pretty difficult to kind of gauge whether something is successful. We have reviews, which is certainly one aspect of this, but like something like Indiana Jones, I don't really think we know exactly how successful that was. It reviewed well. It had higher, decently high hours played for Game Pass games, but like in overall, it wasn't that high. So I really have no clue how that did. And Xbox, I don't think, released any like, we're bragging about how many people played this. So with Avowed, who knows? We could get a lot of information. If it's a big hit, we could get no information. We just don't know. So I'll be playing that for 2 weeks, and you can expect my review on the 13th. This is a game I think is really important for the year, so I'm certainly excited to play it and share my thoughts. So I think that's it for now. And thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.